but it had never seemed so fine before. Perhaps because he had never happened to have had an ingenious young face so near him, in which the varying emotions born of the music and the romance it portrayed came and went so eloquently that it was impossible to help reading them. Polly did not know that this was why he leaned down so often to speak to her, with an expression which she did not understand, but liked very much nevertheless. "Don't shut your eyes, Polly. They are so full of mischief tonight I like to see them," said Tom, after idly wondering for a minute if she knew how long and curly her lashes were. "I don't wish to look affected, but the music tells the story so much better than the acting that I don't care to look on half the time," answered Polly, hoping Tom wouldn't see the tears she had so cleverly suppressed. "Now I like the acting best. The music is all very fine, I know, but it does seem so absurd for people to go round telling tremendous secrets at the top of their voices. I can't get used to it." "That's because you've more common sense than romance. I don't mind the absurdity and quite long to go and comfort that poor girl with the broken heart," said Polly with a sigh, as the curtain fell on a most affecting tableau. "What's-his-name is a great jack not to see that she adores him. In real life we fellows ain't such bats as all that," observed Tom, who had decided opinions on many subjects that he knew very little about, and expressed them with great candor. A curious smile passed over Polly's face, and she put up her glass to hide her eyes as she said, "I think you are bats, sometimes, but women are taught to wear masks, and that accounts for it, I suppose." "I don't agree. There's precious little masking nowadays. Wish there was a little more sometimes," added Tom, thinking of several blooming damsels, whose beseeching eyes had begged him not to leave them to wither on the parent stem. "I hope not, but I guess there's a good deal more than anyone would suspect." "What can you know about broken hearts and blighted beings?" asked Sidney, smiling at the girl's pensive tone. Polly glanced up at him, and her face dimpled and shone again, as she answered, laughing, "Not much. My time is to come." "I can't imagine you walking about the world with your back hair down, bewailing a hard-hearted lover," said Tom. "Neither can I. That wouldn't be my way." "No, Miss Polly would let concealment prey in her damask cheeks and still smile on in the novel fashion, or turn Sister of Charity and nurse the heartless lover through smallpox or some other contagious disease, and die seraphically, leaving him to the agonies of remorse and tardy love." Polly gave Sidney an indignant look as he said that in a slow satirical way that nettled her very much, for she hated to be thought sentimental. "That's not my way either," she said decidedly. "I'd try to outlive it, and if I couldn't, I'd try to be the better for it. Disappointment needn't make a woman a fool." "Nor an old maid if she's pretty and good. Remember that, and don't visit the sins of one blockhead on all the rest of mankind," said Tom, laughing at her earnestness. "I don't think there is the slightest possibility of Miss Polly's being either," added Sidney, with a look which made it evident that concealment had not seriously damaged Polly's damask cheek as yet. "There's Clara Bird. I haven't seen her but once since she was married. How pretty she looks!" And Polly retired behind the big glass again, thinking the chat was becoming rather personal. "Now there's a girl who tried a different cure for unrequited affection from any you mention. People say she was fond of Belle's brother. He didn't reciprocate, but went off to India to spoil his constitution, so Clara married a man 20 years older than she is, and consoles herself by being the best-dressed woman in the city." "That accounts for it," said Polly when Tom's long whisper ended. "For what?" "The tired look in her eyes." "I don't see it," said Tom, after a survey through the glass. "Didn't expect you would." "I see what you mean. A good many women have it nowadays," said Sidney over Polly's shoulder. "What's she tired of, the old gentleman?" asked Tom. "And herself," added Polly. "You've been reading French novels, I know you have. That's just the way the heroines go on," cried Tom. "I haven't read one, but it's evident you have, young man, and you'd better stop." "I don't care for 'em, only do it to keep up my French. But how came you to be so wise, ma'am?" "Observation, sir. I like to watch faces, and I seldom see a grown-up one that looks perfectly happy." "True for you, Polly. No more you do, now I think of it. I don't know but one that always looks so, and there it is." "Where?" asked Polly with interest. "Look straight before you, and you'll see it." Polly did look, but all she saw was her own face in the little mirror of the fan, which Tom held up and peeped over with a laugh in his eyes. "Do I look happy? I'm glad of that." And Polly surveyed herself with care. Both young men thought it was girlish vanity, and smiled at its naive display, but Polly was looking for something deeper than beauty, and was glad not to find it. "Rather a pleasant little prospect, hey, Polly?" "My bonnet is straight, and that's all I care about. Did you ever see a picture of Beau Brummel?" asked Polly quickly. "No." "Well, there he is, modernized," and turning the fan, she showed him himself. "Any more portraits in your gallery?" asked Sidney, as if he liked to share all the nonsense going. "One more." "What do you call it?" "The Portrait of a Gentleman," and the little glass reflected a gratified face for the space of 2 seconds. "Thank you. I'm glad I don't disgrace my name," said Sidney, looking down into the merry blue eyes that thanked him silently for many of the small kindnesses that women never can forget. "Very good, Polly, you are getting on fast," whispered Tom, patting his yellow kids approvingly. "Be quiet. Dear me, how warm it is!" And Polly gave him a frown that delighted his soul. "Come out and have an ice. We shall have time." "Fan is so absorbed I couldn't think of disturbing her," said Polly, fancying that her friend was enjoying the evening as much as she was. A great mistake, by the way, for Fan was acting for effect, and though she longed to turn and join them, wouldn't do it unless a certain person showed signs of missing her. He didn't, and Fanny chatted on, raging inwardly over her disappointment, and wondering how Polly could be so gay and selfish. It was delicious to see the little airs Polly put on, for she felt as if she were somebody else and acting a part. She leaned back as if quite oppressed by the heat, permitted Sidney to fan her, and paid him for the service by giving him a flower from her bouquet, proceedings which amused Tom immensely, even while it piqued him a little to be treated like an old friend who didn't count. "Go in and win, Polly. I'll give you my blessing," he whispered, as the curtain rose again. "It's only part of the fun, so don't you laugh, you disrespectful boy," she whispered back in a tone never used toward Sidney. Tom didn't quite like the different way in which she treated them, and the word boy disturbed his dignity, for he was almost 21, and Polly ought to treat him with more respect. Sidney, at the same moment, was wishing he was in Tom's place, young, comely, and such a familiar friend that Polly would scold and lecture him in the delightful way she did Tom, while Polly forgot them both when the music began, and left them ample time to look at her and think about themselves. While they waited to get out when all was over, Polly heard Fan whisper to Tom, "What do you think Trix will say to this?" "What do you mean?" "Why, the way you've been going on tonight." "Don't know and don't care. It's only Polly." "That's the very thing. She can't bear P." "Well, I can, and I don't see why I shouldn't enjoy myself as well as Trix." "You'll get to enjoying yourself too much if you aren't careful. Polly's waked up." "I'm glad of it. And so's Sid." "I only spoke for your good." "Don't trouble yourself about me. I get lecturing enough in another quarter and can't stand any more. Come, Polly." She took the arm he offered her, but her heart was sore and angry, for that phrase, "It's only Polly," hurt her sadly. "As if I wasn't anybody, hadn't any feelings, and was only made to amuse or work for people. Fan and Tom are both mistaken, and I'll show them that Polly is awake," she thought indignantly. "Why shouldn't I enjoy myself as well as the rest? Besides, it's only Tom," she added with a bitter smile as she thought of Trix. "Are you tired, Polly?" asked Tom, bending down to look into her face. "Yes, of being nobody." "Ah, but you ain't nobody, you're Polly, and you couldn't better that if you tried ever so hard," said Tom warmly, for he really was fond of Polly, and felt uncommonly so just then. "I'm glad you think so anyway. It's so pleasant to be liked." and she